You don't want that player to not be successful because you're hurting their feelings. 22 years, wherever he's at now, it's remarkable. The one thing I don't want to see is him go out on an injury, just because of something, just on a drop back, his Achilles goes.
Hey, I'm Jeff Skversky. On this episode of Inside the Huddle, presented by Sportskeeda, I catch up with former New York Jets first-round pick Anthony Becht, who played 11 seasons in the NFL at tight end for the Jets, the Tampa Bay Bucks, the St. Louis Rams, Arizona Cardinals, and Kansas City Chiefs. He's now the head coach of the St. Louis XFL team, and we will talk about bringing football back to St. Louis after Stan Kroenke ripped football away, taking the Rams out of St. Louis to Los Angeles. We'll talk about the XFL. We'll talk about the NFL. We'll chat about Tom Brady, who came into the league the same time he did, and of course, Tom is still at it in Tampa, where now he makes his home. We'll get into the best tight end in football now, who he thinks that is, with Rob Gronkowski leaving. And of course, Becht and I will talk about the greatest quarterbacks he's ever played with, including the one and only Hall of Famer, Kurt Warner. That and more on this episode of Inside the Huddle.
I like this. I like this.
Anthony, great to see you. Thanks for joining me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. No problem.
You've spent your entire post-playing career, after a great 11-year career in the NFL as a tight end, developing talent. Tell me about that journey, how you made that decision to go from, okay, I'm done playing, my body hurts, I've had enough, I've made my money, and now I want to help the next generation of football players.
Yeah, it really started, honestly, midway through my NFL career. I was a player probably around after my 8th year. I was brought in for those final 4 seasons with multiple organizations for bringing stability to the tight end room, building and developing a young tight end room. Arizona, the Cardinals, the Chiefs. Those were places where I made my back end stops. And then also, to bring leadership to the locker room. So really just that was kind of the point for me where I thought this was going to be a space. Now, immediately after I was playing, I got into the media for 8 years. And I thought, with options there to coach, I thought that was a better angle for me initially. And I really took it upon myself from a media aspect to learn the college game a little bit more, did a lot of, big time college football games over that span, did some NFL games. So I called over 200 football games, learning coaches, players, how the new generation of players kind of training, working, how they're delivering those messages and playbooks to those guys. And you see this success from different organizations, whether it's a MAC school in Toledo all the way up to the top schools like Georgia and Alabama. But I took meticulous notes. I learned how to prepare for a game calling wise from John Gruden. John went about his game calling like he was preparing for an actual game. And, it would start Monday all the way through. I'd assess offense, defense, situations. And then ultimately in those games, calling those games, you're really critiquing and criticizing on both sides the head coach on his decision-making process, the final moments of the game, the final moments of the half, all those things. And those things really were areas for me where I could learn that and get a little more experience with that. And now ultimately throughout that time, training tight ends, some of the best college tight ends and coming out of college, getting them prepared, being a mentor to them in the NFL combine, and then coaching also, starting my first part of coaching in the NFLPA Collegiate All-Star games under Mike Martz, who's obviously a great St. Louis head coach coordinator, and then Marvin Lewis on the back end the last couple of years with him. So, those were kind of my and my big time first experience was, was under Mike Martz in the AAF, another spring league. And the spring league is something that I really gravitated to. It was a place and a space where guys could ultimately get honed into their skills. These guys were very attentive. They wanted to gather all that knowledge that I had, the coaches, the resources to get them to the pinnacle of the NFL. And we sent a lot of guys, 40 plus so guys to NFL training camps. And that was so, kind of gratifying for me as a former player. And then at that time as a coach. So that to me is the purest form of coaching, the spring league. It's where guys, there's no restrictions on time. There's no dates around OTAs. Everything is really constructed for you to help that player reach their goal. And really the final component for me, Jeff, as I grew myself around this, getting into the coaching profession, is being a part of the NFL on the other side. I've been helping transition players that are moving on, whether they're putting out the retirement message or the league is telling them you're retiring, and helping them transition out of football. And being part of the NFL Legends community, being a Southeast coordinator down here in Florida, being with the Players Trust, the NFLPA side, I've been able to work with guys on the back end as well. So helping them transition. So all that really put together the fact that it was time for me to do this. I've had time and opportunity to coach in college and pros. Wasn't good timing for me with my son. He's graduated. He's off to school now. My daughter will be a senior. The time is right for me. And obviously now with the XFL opportunity, really happy and humbled to have it.
You said something kind of interesting in the beginning of that, which was how people train and how they're coached differently today. So what are those differences? I mean, we've seen videos go viral of coaches yelling and screaming and cursing and getting in guys' faces. And it seems like, look, that's kind of the mentality you need to play in the NFL or play professional football, even in the XFL or the other leagues. So my question really is, what is the difference? And are guys more soft now today than from when you played? I mean, I'm sure you've been chewed out as a player in the NFL for over a decade.
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes getting yelled at as a 30-plus-year-old player, but it has happened. I mean, listen, I think what I learned is really throughout my career, and I've been through all those coaches, the Bill Parcells type of style, that negative reinforcement. I think it's important for the head coach to understand each and every player in that locker room.
You're almost like a teacher.
It takes a little more work because you want to know what really ticks and make these guys go. And you're right. The personalities, the mental state, all those things are different now. I think there's room for being that aggressive coach when you want those demands to be there. There's also a time where maybe there's a player that, unfortunately, like you said, and it's not maybe necessarily a soft player, but just, they take information differently. You may have to pull them to the side. You may have to have that conversation. You may have a private conversation, not in front of the teammates. Everybody reacts different to everything. And really, as a head coach, it's your responsibility to know what each of those players kind of go off of. And I think that's a big part of it. And also the relationship part. Players will do anything you want them to do if they believe in you and they believe that you believe in them. And I think you have to give them that sense of security that, you got their back, you're out for their well-being. And honestly, it's really for their sake, for them to succeed. And I think for me, my players will know that for me. My players will know what those expectation levels are. So there are going to be demands, but they're also going to, find a place where they know that, I'm going to be able to push their buttons. They're going to hear the truth from me, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I think guys will respect that at the end of the day.
So are you not taking the Bill Parcells approach, perhaps? That's not your Well,
there are some guys that want that, Jeff. Guys want to be pushed. Guys want to hear that resounding, yelling or screaming or whatever it is, because they're in a world where they're like, okay, I need to be pushing a certain way. So finding those buttons that need to be pushed for each player is going to be important. And listen, some guys, unfortunately, will get some of that maybe don't want to that, but having that connection with them, and they see that pure goodness that's coming from you because you're trying to get them to the max out. My goal is to max out their skill set so that they know whether it's the XFL, it's done for them, or the NFL, that they know they've reached it and they got no regrets. And that, to me, that would be the ultimate goal for me, putting together the best staff with myself to allow them to do that. And then they can sleep at night knowing, you know what? I maxed it out with Coach Becht and his staff, and I couldn't make it, or vice versa.
What made you tick as a player? Was it the Bill Parcells approach? I mean, you played for a lot of teams, maybe I'm missing some here, but the Jets and the Bucks and the Rams and the Chiefs. Of all the coaches you played for, what made you tick? What was the coach, maybe the personality, or did it depend on the day? What was really kind of like your motivating factor from a coach?
I think coming into the league, I wasn't quite sure what would take for me. I think the best experience for me was having Bill Parcells, the GM at the time, Al Groh, the head coach. They were very, they didn't let anything hang out. They put the pressure and turn the screws up all the time. I think nowadays you see first round picks, guys that are drafted high. There's a maybe I don't know if it's the right term, but a coddling process where you don't want to ruffle feathers. You don't want that player to not be successful because you're hurting their feelings. I ultimately took that as, the tighter the noose was, the pressure was to go out there and be the guy, start early, play early as a first round pick. I had multiple. I remember, sitting in a meeting room, a former head coach, Ken Wisenhunt, when I was a rookie with the Jets. He was my tight end coach. We would have a meeting. We'd have a bunch of the tight ends, and he'd be like, "All right, guys, you guys are free to go." He'd say, "Hey, but Anthony, you need to stay back." And he'd sit back in his chair, he'd tip his hat back, and he'd look at him like he was just like, "Man, you knew he was getting kind of drilled by the head coach and the offensive coordinator." He's like, "Listen," he's like, "you need to play better. Coach Parcells needs more out of you. Al Groh needs more to you. You're a first round pick. You need to go out there and be a better blocker. You need to do all these things." And some guys, that would be tough for them to hear that. The first thing is like, you always want to react in a negative way and throw something back. "What do you mean, coach? I'm doing everything I can. I'm this and that." But I think that ultimately helped me and took that diva kind of first round style out of my blood. And that set the tone. So now the other coaches that I had, the Herm Edwards, which was right after that, who was more of a player's coach, a guy that, tried to, really pat you on the back and build you up positively. And then the Grudens put high demand on you, and the Marts, all these different guys. So I think starting out that, for me, not knowing what to expect was the best way. But I saw the same class for guys that came in with me that they didn't react well to that and ultimately drove them out of the league. So you have to be open to criticism. You have to have thick skin as a player. And if you can do that, you can really gauge yourself and play well under all styles of coaching.
You've had so much experience from so many different coaches and in your playing days and teammates and things like that. It's such a wealth of knowledge. As you're now the coach of the XFL team in St. Louis, I imagine guys will look at you and go, "Wow, this guy has done it all, and he's been around some of the greatest minds." I mean, do you think you're going to get that respect just built on your resume alone?
Yeah, I believe I do. I listen. We talked about it earlier about all the different avenues and places that I came from, and I've seen it so far. We've had 6 showcases, met 1,300 players that we've put at these showcases, and these guys coming up to me, conversating with me, "Coach, appreciate your time." They want knowledge. They're asking me questions within the drills and the different things we're doing. Of course it does. I mean, and plus the rest of the coaches in the league. I mean, these guys are Hall of Famers, some of the best coaches in college and the NFL. To be thrown into that pool is important. And there is a respect for that. Guys understand that they want to get where you've been. And the path was different for every guy. For me, yeah, I was a first round pick, but how do you last and play double-digit years in the league? What are the small things? I was a very disciplined, accountable, reliable, available player. There's a lot of guys. I played almost 170 games over that time. I didn't miss many at all. And I think that those are the things that make you the great player. And then the minute details of the game. As my career grew, Jeff, I wasn't always going to be the fastest tight end. I always wasn't going to be the guy that had the quick movements. I knew that I had to change and adapt myself to extend my career, and I did that. So having that skill set, that's for every position. Those things can be taught and learned by a receiver, a DB, a D lineman, or an offensive lineman. So those things that I can add, and of course, playing for over 11 seasons, over 12 years, all the head coaches, 5 organizations, 5 head coaches, and then 2 of them got fired midseason. So that's 7. And all the coaches that I learned from, now I have that network and pool of guys and coaches I can pull in and build the best staff. And they're all going to have the credentials that these players are going to want, whether they're a young up and coming coach that I have a position that maybe played 17 years at the position, or a coach that's got 35 years under his belt coaching multiple positions that had all pro players under his resume. So those are the things that ultimately those players will respect that. And I've seen that early on in the AAF, and then of course in those showcases, and ultimately that'll happen when we start our league.
I lived in St. Louis for 3 years from 06 to 08, covered the St. Louis Rams. I missed the greatest show on turf. It was the end of the Marshall Faulk, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce days. Scott Linehan comes in as the head coach. Mark Bolger's the quarterback. And those were some really lean years. And then Stan Kroenke moves the team out of St. Louis, and, he's the most evil person in that town. Do you get the sense from the city of St. Louis just how much they are starving for professional football? And is this the answer in that great town. It's known as a baseball town. It's known as a St. Louis Cardinals town. And so that's number one, like the Eagles are in Philadelphia. Do you get the sense that people are starving for great football?
They are. I'll tell you that you're right about being one of the best sports towns out there. They are hungry for a football team. The 2.0 version in 2020, they led all the teams in the fan base as far as going to the games, filling up the stadiums. They were ready to open up the upper deck in that last game before COVID pretty much shut them down. So it's exciting time. I've tried to engage myself. That's probably one thing that's going to be a little different in my world as a head coach is the engagement with the fan base. Maybe a little bit on social media. I have a good kind of angle on that and how I kind of go about that, bringing my kind of space into their world and knowing that, I care about all the things that they care about. And they do want a football team. And, this is the team that I wanted. When DJ and Danny Garcia and Redbird Capital were putting together the cities and they were telling us who they were going to be, I was desperate about getting St. Louis. It's the deepest, strongest fanatic fan base out there for the XFL. They will show up to the game. I think the goal is, I started a little hashtag fill the top. I want that second tier filled, and I think we can do it. I think these fans are awesome. I watched some of the old videos, some of the YouTube clips from the last season, and these guys are passionate. I mean, passionate as if, this was like a real NFL team in town, and they were hungry for it. Now, when I was there in '08, like you said, those years when they were down, that wasn't a filled stadium. It was like, 20, 25,000 fans. You're talking about 45,000 fans that were going to be at that last game. And now can we make that even more? That's been a big push for me. So I'm going to be up in St. Louis. I'm going to meet some of these fans. I'm going to engage the community prior to the season started. And ultimately, when the season does start, when we get up there for our games, hopefully that's a reflection. I want our fan base. I want our city to have the loudest, deepest fan base we have. I want to be the premier show in town for the XFL. That's the show they want to televise. They're going to televise all the games, but we want to be the leaders in that. I think it's important for my players. These players, they want to get better and they want to go to the league. Guess what they got to do? They got to play in front of a lot of fans that are loud so that they can deal with those situations and think ultimately that's going to help their position moving forward to get them there when they go, if they want to get into the NFL as well.
The fans are still really hurt out there, with what happened with the Rams leaving. Do you get that sense from the football fan base in St. Louis that people are still, they despise Stan Kroenke? I mean, do you feel that? And now it's, hey, you say, hey, now it's my responsibility to win these fans over again and make them trust and love football again, in a sense.
Unfortunately, business decisions have to be made, for every business, NFL, outside, big businesses, they have to do what's best. And Stan, that's something he pushed and decided to do. And he, unfortunately, when you leave a deep fan base like St. Louis, it hurts. It definitely hurts. I definitely see it. I definitely see the fan base angry about, I've seen some of the videos, some of the tailgating events, what they've done. But you know what? They did embrace this football team in 2020, and they are embracing it now. PR was telling me prior to the announcement, they had 60,000+ fans on an email list wanting ticket information, wanting merchandise information. That just got me excited. And it just shows that the fan base is ready to go and they want something to kind of feed off of. And they will. They treated it like it was a real professional NFL team when we were there. Back in 2020, and now I get the same sentiment as well. Yeah, they're angry, they're heated, but I think that's the driving force on why there's so many fans actually going to the game, so they can embrace the team name, embrace all the players. My job is to bring that to them, bring a product that they can embrace, but they will show up, and I'm excited to see them when we go out there for the first game.
Yeah, and I almost want to see, and it just seems like everyone's been trying, and obviously the XFL and all the other different leagues are trying to have almost like a minor league system, like minor league baseball, but for the NFL. And I just don't know why do you think it's been difficult to make that successful long-term? And I know maybe this is, outside of your realm, but from what you see from the inside as a coach, a part of the XFL, why has it been so difficult? And what will it take for, you guys to be, the AAA, for example, the AAA of the NFL in a sense?
Well, you've seen we built a partnership with the NFL. That's important. Innovations, technologies, rules, all of those things. It's a small partnership. As we can show, we can feed. You hear ownership talking about this is an opportunity, developmental type of league. Well, people get kind of stale. Well, we don't want it to be a developmental league. The true fans, they want this is a professional league.
Right.
We don't want it. But ultimately, if our players are great, guess where they're going to be? They're going to go to the NFL. So I'll put my NFL hat on because I was with that side of it for so long. In their eyes, it's like, listen, it really comes down to dollars, right? Dollars and cents. They feel like with the expansion of the practice squad, the 16, that they can develop their own in-house players with drills and going through the process during the practice week, allotting those players time. The problem what they don't have is they don't have a real live game day situation where they can go out and put the product out there that they've been grooming to see what they have.
Right.
I think eventually something can happen. There's a lot of things, health insurance, workers' comp. What if a guy gets hurt in the XFL, how that all works. So I think there's a way to blend it, utilize the space for those players. But ultimately, where is the point where we can say, okay, that fourth tackle or that fourth QB, how do we bring them to us? And how do we groom them? I mean, right now there's a lot of tape, great tape there that has to be figured out. But I think the early connection with the NFL and what we're trying to do will ultimately, hopefully, build that. And I think we just have to show long-term success. And I really believe with the ownership in place and the folks that are actually making the decisions up top that this is a long-term play. And if we can push guys in the NFL, we will help develop and push them there. But ultimately, we want to have a secondary market, a secondary league that can be great as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would love it. I mean, you see, I remember growing up as a kid watching some AAA baseball and stuff and seeing those prospects and maybe guys that were fourth round picks that aren't playing, that, are not making the cut on game day. Well, go send them down and get some work. And so I get it. It's tough. I mean, I understand there's a lot of logistical things. And so with all your experience and with your love of coaching and teaching, have you thought about coaching in the NFL as well someday? Or is that too much time consuming? Is that too much work? What are your thoughts?
Well, I know in my heart, everything I've tried to accomplish in my career, whether it was a football player, building myself up in a media standpoint, having success there, helping mentoring players, being successful there. Right now I'm trying to be the best XFL head coach. They've allowed me and took an opportunity on me. When quite frankly, if you looked at the standard process of folks getting head coaching jobs, everyone thinks of the traditional, well, he was a coordinator and he did this and that. Those things are great. And that is important for some, but in the XFL, there's a certain type of head coach they wanted. And I think I fit something that they were looking for.
Sure.
Some people call it out of the box that we may be. Now, what my future, I'll say this. I have a lot of network and conversations with coaches. I've had opportunities in the past, not as a head coach, but when those things come my way, those are conversations to have. Right now, I'm really, if I did this for 10 years, I'm happy with it because it is the purest form, like I said, of coaching. It allows me to help really max out a player. Good, bad, or indifferent, they're going to know where they stand after year one, after year two. Hopefully they're not with us for 3 years because there's so many players that are trying to play this game that come out of college and that are out there. But we'll see where it lies. I've had some interesting calls, and I haven't even coached a game yet on just, people and coaches out there that are in line for big jobs and just saying, hey, asking me the same question, Jeff, what's your angle here? Where are you trying to go? I've heard this. I have a relationship with them. Didn't know you were serious about doing something like that. Well, now it's my turn now I got to do it, right? So put it on the field, show the organizational skills, show the leadership skills. I'm going to get those 5 things on my desk every day that have nothing to do with football, dealing with those day-to-day things. Those are things that I want to embrace. I want to embrace this process. There's no rush for me. I think every coach that gets a position is already looking for their next opportunity. I'm really trying to hone in on this one. And it might sound like coach speak, but it's the honest to God truth. Like, I don't need to go to the NFL to check the box on doing something. I'm a head coach in a professional football league. And if I do this for a decade, I'm going to be happy with that. So it's my time to shine. It's my time to do it the way I want to do it. I pushed all my chips in. They gave me that chance to sell my vision, and they brought me in. So I can't wait for this opportunity, and we'll see what the future lies.
You've caught a lot of touchdowns in the NFL as a player. you've played with a lot of quarterbacks. Don't imagine you can name them all very quickly, but do you have a favorite guy you love playing with? I mean, the end of your career was Kurt Warner, Jeff Garcia, two great guys. And I love Kurt and Brenda and his wife, and they're the nicest people ever. Kurt has an amazing story coming from, the Arena League and what he did. I mean, it's unheard of what he did, and they based a movie on it. And so, who are your favorite quarterbacks you played with, most memorable times you had as a tight end in the NFL?
Well, yeah, Kurt was phenomenal. Playing 2 seasons with him. With the Cardinals, we made. The year before I got there, they went to the Super Bowl, and the year after, we got pretty close again. And somebody that's stands in the pocket, delivers the pass, and finds that guy and takes the shot. And his ball is pretty now. I mean, one of the best balls. I'd say. When I first got in the league, Vinny Testaverde, I don't know if anybody throws a better spiral than him, and to be able to soak up the knowledge. When I got in the locker room and a rookie, he was a 13-year player, ended up playing 21 years, which is, I guess that's common now. We see Tom Brady who came out with me, still playing the game, but has been a mentor for me all the way through. He lives close to me in Tampa, one of my best friends, and really helped me along the way. Chad Pennington, probably the best on-field quarterback as far as a leader, as far as a guy that just could direct traffic, and really someone that, I bounce a lot off of for sure. And you mentioned Mark Bolger. I mean, that was my college roommate, my college quarterback. To spend a year with him, after he made it big and got his chance. I know it wasn't a great year, great season for us in St. Louis, but, to play with your college guy and watch him kind of move up, he was a guy that was drafted really late as well, that no one really gave a lot of respect to, and ultimately, was able to reach his goals. So, yeah, there's a lot of quarterbacks. Tampa, heck, I have 5 of them. I mean, there's multiple ones. It just seemed like we could never find the right one. But those 3 guys right there, 4 guys playing with those kind of players, they're the Jeff Garcias, the Greaseys. I mean, these are players that have really good careers that you learn a lot from, that knew how to win. And I was around a lot of winners, and I think that ultimately rubbed off on me in a lot of ways.
Why do you think you didn't win a ton in New York? And why do you think the Jets have struggled so much? I mean, they've had, really good players, high draft picks. It's a huge market. You think free agents want to go there. You're drafted in the first round in 2000 by the New York Jets. And, we talk about St. Louis having some lean years, the same with the Jets. I mean, what is it about the Jets where they haven't been able to turn things around, in your opinion?
Well, when I was there, we had in my 5 seasons, we were building something good. We won 2 division championships. In my last year in 2004, my 5th year, we were that hot team. Went into Pittsburgh in the second round. We knocked off a powerful Chargers team with Drew Brees at the helm. And then we beat Pittsburgh on their field, but we just couldn't make a kick at the end. And that ultimately cost me an AFC championship opportunity. But you're right. After that, there's been big gaps, right? Missing pieces. Rex Ryan was able to come in 9, 10, 11 and build something there and got them to 2 AFC championships. And then since there, it's been very stale. I still cover the team. I work for the team. I think they're in the best position they've been in since Rex and his crew were there. This is a team that's loaded up with young talent, young stars. It really comes down to their quarterback play and Zach Wilson really turning the table. The problem is the league itself, the division itself is getting stronger. Bills have become a perennial power now. The Patriots have never really slipped, but they're still right there, and they make it hard every single week. And, of course, Miami has drafted and built and got some intriguing players as well. So that division is getting stronger as the Jets get stronger. So I expect them to take a huge jump. I think the biggest thing for them is injuries and missed games. They're big-time players. Carl Lawson, top free agent, blows his Achilles out. Like, these guys are all back. They have 4, in my opinion, 3 first-round draft picks this year, but 4 with Breece Hall, who I thought was the best running back. They got some talent now. If they can stay healthy and push through, this could be a groundbreaking season for them to propel this team for many years. But it all does come down to the quarterback. And I think, with a lot of young quarterbacks across the NFL, that's the waiting game. How quickly can they figure it out? And they put their chips, they built around Zach. Now Zach's got to do it. It's his time. He's got to stand up and deliver.
You talk about quarterbacks and you coming into the league when you did. You mentioned Tom Brady. I imagine you probably playing so long and being hit and everything else, you have some bruises, maybe getting out of bed in the morning, you're a little sore, things like that. Are you amazed that Tom Brady is still doing it, and not only doing it, but doing it at the highest level. I mean, it's insane.
I think more the mental aspect. I think remember Peyton Manning said he just couldn't do the day-to-day grind to get to the game anymore because they put so much work, early mornings, late nights, every single day. The game is the fun part. You finally get to the game. But yeah, listen, nobody ever has done it better than Tom Brady. The rules, obviously, for the quarterback, the way they practice, only having so many padded practices. Nobody goes around the quarterback that much at all as far as in the practice. That's helped kind of jumpstart. I mean, the timing was right for him. And he's had some great offensive lines. I mean, you think about what they did with the Patriots. Dante Scarnecchia, one of the best offensive line coaches in the business, really protected Tom. Tom's not a guy that can do anything outside the box. And think about a quarterback that can play that long and has to play from a 4x4 area, has to do everything from there and still play 22 years, wherever he's at now. It's remarkable. The one thing I don't want to see is him go out on an injury, just because of something, just on a drop back, his Achilles goes, or that's how I feel like that may happen. But the guy is driven. If he feels good, he's passionate about the day-to-day grind. Why not go out there? Now, Ryan Jensen, their starting center, that's about as huge as a loss you can have at your line position when you're talking about protecting him in the pocket, right in the middle. Interesting to see how that goes through this year. He may actually, have to do some more movement within the pocket, but for him, it's been really fun to watch. The greatest player to ever play the game, and he just continues to add on every single season he decides to stay.
It's amazing to me what he's been able to do, and I saw an interview recently where he still uses the fact he was drafted where he was out of Michigan, and he still uses that as motivation. I love how athletes use these little things, and you're like, geez, Tom, can you get over it? I mean, it was forever ago. We've seen what's happened. We've seen what you've done. It's like, move on, get over it. But I love just, you talk about the mental aspect of the game, but having that drive and determination going, everybody passed me over, 5-6 times, and I'm still using that today as a motivation. And I've won, more Super Bowls than anyone else. I love that. Absolutely love it.
Think about how the process, I always talk about this too, like when he's back there processing information from the play call coming in to the time what are you doing defensively that he hasn't seen? I mean, there's nothing you can do. I can imagine, like, when I was playing the game, doing certain things, a lot of things came easy, but you got older. That was the problem. Well, as a quarterback, it's a little different, because if you can still throw, the mental side is really the ultimate de facto in this whole thing. And to go back there, drop back, watch film, thinking to myself, wow, like what there's nothing a defense can bring. It really comes down to execution. That's got to be an awesome thing. Anything in life that you can do that's so easy. There's something, whether it's you in front of the camera doing the news, whatever that may be, it comes easy because you've mastered that craft. That's how it feels for him when he's back there. And it's the hardest position to play. It's mind-blowing. It really is, to think that he's still able to want to do it. And it's nice. You have a nice little cushy job waiting for you for, the $300 million contract that's out there getting into the media. It takes a lot of pressure off of you. So, and plus it's got to be tough too. Like, every year you play, if you're not in the Super Bowl, it's an epic fail. Like, guys get into the playoffs. That's like, hey, we did it. We got to the playoffs. Or, I maxed out my career goal, or a season goal. But if you don't make the Super Bowl, like, how disappointing. That's got to be tough for him, because he doesn't want to waste any time with these years not getting there. I mean, right. He wants to get to the Super Bowl. So
are they the favorites? Or is Brady?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, it does get a little tougher, losing your center, but they'll find a way. They got a great, a lot of good players. They got some depth. Of course they are. Yeah, they're definitely going to be a favorite. The Rams, all those teams, the team that won it last year obviously is going to be in the mix. But you think about what the Bucs are getting back. They didn't have Godwin going into that game versus the Rams, and they almost beat him. So now he's back. He's one of the best receivers in football. And, no Gronk. We'll see how they get by there. They have some pieces collectively they can win by. But, their defense will be just as good. They've added some strong pieces there. But as long as Brady's in the mix, it gives them that chance.
Last quick question. Obviously, Gronk is done. We'll see if he comes back, but he says he's done. As a former tight end, who's the best tight end out there today, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's different phases of tight end.
You got to give me one. You got to give me one. Is it Kelsey?
I'm going to give it to George Kittle.
Okay.
The reason why I give it to George Kittle is, in my blood, I'm a little more like I look for a complete guy. George isn't the biggest tight end as far as size, but man, he gives you a fight at blocking. He pass protects, and he runs as good as a route as a Kelsey. So it just kind of crosses each other out. So what's the extra? I got to give it to George Kittle. I will say this about Travis Kelce, though. I'll be interested to see how does his game get affected with, without the cheetah being in the offense, without having that. Now he becomes a little more of a focal point for defenses. Be interesting to see how his numbers get affected with that. Does he stay the same? I think to me that'll tell the tale and maybe raise him above George if he can match what he's been doing without cheetah on the roster. So, but to me, the complete guy that has that fight and can go out there and put up over 100 on you, I like George Kittle.
Anthony, thanks so much for joining me. Best of luck with your St. Louis team in the XFL this season. Best of luck out there bringing football back to St. Louis.
Thanks, Jeff.
Great insight there from Anthony Becht. He loves teaching the next generation. In fact, he has his own football camp called the Anthony Becht Football Camp down in Tampa, as well as in suburban Philadelphia. If you want more information, if you want your child to attend that camp, check out AnthonyBechtFootballCamp.com. If you like the show, click the subscribe button up at the bottom of your screen. Also, hit the bell button on YouTube, and we'll send you an alert the next time we drop an episode. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all your favorite podcast apps. Just click on the description and the links below and check out wherever you want to listen and watch. It's up to you. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. For Inside the Huddle, presented by Sportskeeda, I'm Jeff Skversky. We'll see you next time.